Sustainable Energy Education and Development Support. And this is our second annual Do-It-Yourself Solar Install Workshop. Thank you very much for coming. I'd love to see a large audience like this. Can everybody hear me? All right, well, let's hope everybody else tonight shouts the way I do. If you wish to know more information about seeds, you can go to our website, which is seedsgroup.net. During the break, we may send a donation basket around, and that would be much appreciated if you could help us out. If you want to get credit for your donation, then you should go to this table where somebody will give you a receipt for your donation, or put it towards your membership, which is only $10 a year. Much appreciated, any donations that we can get for this. Otherwise, this forum is free. I'd like to introduce Blair Buselli now, who is going to be your presenter for this week and next week. Blair was trained by Seeds in the beginning of his solar career, and then he went on to become fully certified as a solar installer in Pennsylvania. And I guess he does it other than Pennsylvania, but he can tell you that. He is the founder of Shekinah Solar, and he also is part of the Buselli Plumbing, Heating, and Electric, which is a family business which has been around for over 30 years, right, Blair? So, thank you, Blair, for doing this. So, let's have Blair step up.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's a beautiful day. We haven't had too many of these here this year so far, but to come out, learn about solar. As Kathy said, thank you for that introduction. She had said, been Buselli Plumbing, Heating, and Electric for 30 years now. My father started it in 1984. I was not born yet, but he started the business, grew the business, and from there, right about 2007, I went to school, got out of school in 2007. January 1st, 2007, started working for my father full-time, and I had worked summers before that, and had that desire to get my electrical license in New York State. Right about the time I was ready to take my test for New York State, I got some phone calls from Seeds saying, we're putting on some solar workshops, would you like to be involved? So I said, yeah, I'll do that. We did solar electric, solar thermal, windmills, did a whole bunch of different green renewable energies. And that's kind of how we got started. I'm very appreciative of that and everything they've done. Luckily, we've had the opportunity to really learn the correct way to install it. Seeds has done a great job in getting great instructors in here to teach you the right way and not the wrong way. Yeah, this works, but this is a lot better. Do it this way. To the point where when we get an inspection, a lot of times we are educating the inspector on what to look for, what not to look for. People ask us, the inspector will come up and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what I'm looking for. Well, here, look for this, look for this. If you're on another job, look for this. You know, we can educate them because the important thing is not only to get solar panels on your roof and save some money, it's to do it the right way. And that's what we're going to try to get across here. This isn't for everybody, you know, hands-on people, yeah. If you've got some technical skills, that's what we're looking for. It's going to be a little slow moving to start out, but we're going to try to get on the roof here later on, and that way keep you a little bit more interested and not fall asleep. So my brother here, Billy's in the back. He's the tall, handsome fellow back there, and he's been working with us full time probably about 4 or 5 years, and we've been doing doing a lot of solar installs. Usually it's me and my brother on the roof, and my father wiring everything in the basement, and nice little happy family getting together and saving some energy. So that's a little bit about our business. You see we do wood pellets, solar hot water, solar electric, conventional plumbing, heating, electric, pool solar. But that's us, not worried about it. Right now we're worried about educating you guys on how to put up your own solar array. So I'm going to have Jack come up and give a little presentation on the economics part of it. And then once he's done, we're going to go through a quick slideshow, see a couple videos of the install, and we actually did a ground mount, and knowing I was going to do this presentation, I had videotaped a little bit with my iPhone. The video isn't that great, so don't criticize me for that, but at least you'll be able to see the pictures and get a grasp of what's going on. So, Jack?
Okay. So my name's Jack Barnett. I'm on the board of Seeds and been a solar homeowner now for 3-4 years, actually longer if you count my simple solar system, thermal system. And Jim Sanders and I worked on a handout, which we have here, pass around. There may not be enough for everyone, so if you're sharing with someone, that would be helpful. Appreciate it. So we developed this kind of 3-pager to help people who are homeowners evaluate whether solar will pay back for you. And what does it mean? So this, I'll probably spend no more than 15 minutes unless there's lots of questions, and we can talk more questions during the break. But we'll kind of make sure you have the economics and you understand that what's a good reason to buy solar and put it on your house. So first off, let's figure out what a good investment is. So Kathy's been asking for this analysis for months. Finally got to do it. Let's compare a CFL light bulb to an LED light bulb. Which is the better investment? Anybody want to raise your hand for CFLs? No CFLs. Okay, well this is going to be an easy one. LEDs. Everybody agree LEDs are a better investment? Yep. Maybe not. Okay. Conventional incandescent bulbs. So is that the better investment? Oh well, we have a lot of. This is a workshop, guys. You got to participate. Okay. So if we compare the two types of light bulbs, they're both 80 lumens, and lumens is the measure of light intensity. We're used to comparing it in watts, but if you really look at the wattage of these two light bulbs, they're a little bit different. They're 13 watts for a CFL and 10 watts for an LED. So that's the amount of energy they use when they're being turned on, when they're on. The cost to acquire them is significantly different, $2 versus $8. But the lifetime is a little different. The LED will last 3 times as long. Okay? So that's the base question. What's the better investment? Well, we got to make some assumptions. How often are we going to use them? So if we make the assumption we're going to use it 5 hours a day, every day, and the price of our electricity is 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Now you can start to get some numbers on it, right? So, and investment is about numbers. So the annual cost to use the CFL is $261, but over its lifetime, you'll have to pay the $2 to buy it, and then over the lifetime you'll spend $14.35. So the total cost is $16.35, which is better over the same 5.5 years than the LED, which would be $11.5 plus $8 to buy it, $19.05. So if you're only looking at a 5-year time horizon, the CFL is a better investment, right? That's what those numbers say. You agree?
Okay, yeah.
Okay? But
Actually, I don't agree at this point because Home Depot is now selling the good LED 60-watt bulbs for $5.
I saw them on sale this week too. When I went and looked at the $8 is the regular price. So you're right, $3 difference in sale price. Yes.
Yeah, I bought some LEDs at Home Depot and they burned out on me. So
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Yeah, so this is all based on the numbers they give, not necessarily what the actually quality of the product. That's true. But over the lifetime of 16.5 years for the LED, you'd have to buy 3 of the CFLs. if the lifetime data is accurate. So then, in that 16.5-year time horizon, the LED would be the better investment, because you'd spend $8 less, right? Okay? So the answer is not easy. And it makes a difference at what time you're looking to invest, whether it's products on sale or not, what's the price of electricity. If you use it only 1 hour a day instead of 5 hours a day, it's also different. Okay, so you've got to do numbers to know whether an investment is a good investment for you. And it's got to make sense to your household environment. Okay, so we can actually do it even further to compare it more specifically. So there's an annual rate of return is an important statistic you see when people sell you car mortgages or loans, house mortgages, your interest rates on your bank accounts if you're getting any. I'm not. So all those are important, the annual rate of return. So that's a way to compare something more exactly. So if we compare it with an LED, the initial investment for the LED is $6 more than the CFL, right? So that's the investment you've required to buy. And in 5 years, it would be a negative return. You wouldn't have made your money back compared to the CFL. But if you do 15 years, you've made 11.4% on that $6 investment. Okay, so that's how to compare those two things and make it into a standard rate of return so that you can compare that to other things like bank accounts, mortgages, how much your CD might be paying, etc. That's the way to compare it. Now, what if you compare this to an incandescent light bulb that's only 50 cents to buy, but uses 60 watts to burn and has a lifetime of maybe 1,500 hours? Anybody want to guess which one pays back sooner? And what the rate of return is for the LED? Okay, I flashed it on the screen earlier. But the initial investment is $7.50 because you're buying a 50-cent light bulb versus a $8 light bulb. But your incandescent costs $12 to use in 1 year at 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay? That's more than the LED's initial cost. So the LED rate of return in that scenario is 47% in 1 year. Okay? Yeah?
Do you know what the lumens of a 60-watt incandescent light bulb are?
It's about 800.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. It varies by brand and color and things like that. But yeah, they're all comparable. So to do a true investment analysis, you got to know the numbers. Yes?
You should also take into account something you don't know.
Which is?
What's the next technology which will appear in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 years?
That's
And you
definitely,
can't tell me if it's going to come out in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years.
that's definitely true. And so with a long life investment like an LED that's going to last 16 years, you then have the problem in the future of, do I replace my technology that hasn't paid back yet with something new that might show up?
Right.
That's always a trade-off, and that's why people don't buy computers instantly, because the next computer will be cheaper and faster. And that's been true for a couple of decades. But these are the issues in investments.
It's more how much is your usage. If you're a heavy user, your light's on 10 hours a day because your kids are running in and out, and, or you're a night person, so your lights are on all night long.
Right, right. So these
Okay.
are important things to compare and customize to your specific situation. And the risk of future technology is definitely part of the risk analysis that I did talk about. Okay, so this is just an example of what makes a good investment. You've got to decide for yourself what is a good investment for you. So, but to know if a solar system is a good investment, what do we need to know? Well, we need to know what's it going to cost to install. And Blair's going to talk about that, and I'll have some rules of thumb in this short presentation. We need to know how and when you make money back. Okay, you're going to make some savings on electricity, but you're also going to have other ways to make money back. We need to know what the expected lifetime is, and then how does it compare to other investments you might choose to take your money and invest in. So what does the solar system cost? First, there are a couple issues, and Blair's going to talk more about site quality and whether your house roof or other location is good enough to have to put solar on it. And what its orientation and shading are the big issues there, but I'll let Blair cover that. And then you got to decide what size system you can put on that area. And in sizing, there might be a physical constraint. You might not have enough roof space. Or you've got shading over here, but over here is okay, so you've got to pick the spot that's not shaded. But you're also limited by the state regulations that says you cannot put more than 110% of your annual usage and generate more than that to put back on the grid. Okay? So the regulations for the utility puts a limit on the size system you can have in net metering. And we'll talk about what net metering is in a minute. And you might be limited by your amount of cash you have, the budget you can afford to invest at this time. So all three of those are constraints on the size of the system. And you've got to pick the smallest one, whatever it is. Once you know that system size you're ready to invest in, you've got to figure out the cost. So I'll give some rules of thumb here. And the rules of thumb is, for an average system here in Northeast Pennsylvania, without any bells and whistles or fancy things, it's probably going to cost $4 to $3.50 a watt to have a system professionally installed. And wattage, just like the light bulb, we measure the system in wattage, okay? But it's watts, in this case, direct current, DC, rather than watts AC. Don't worry about that, but we'll come up a little bit as we go through it. Now, if you want to do it yourself, and you're just buying materials, and Blair will give you specific pricing later on the packages he's assembled for this workshop, but it ranges to roughly about $2 a watt for materials only. Okay? So I've got a system on my house. My system is 5.5 kilowatts, so that's 5,500 watts. So at $4 a watt, that's, do the math, $22,000. Okay? That I've got to pay to build the system, professionally installed. Okay. The way to really know is to get a professional like Blair to come out to your site and give you a price estimate. Blair is NABCEP certified. NABCEP is the National Board, I can never remember the acronym, North American Board of Certified Energy Professionals. It's a national organization that certifies solar and other installers to make sure they're doing the system right, as he said, and going to maintain the system, warrant it, and several things like that. So if you're looking for a professional, don't just grab any electrician, my recommendation. Do one who's got the solar experience and passed the tests and has a record of installing solar and doing continuing education and keep that up.
Is there a fee for that inspection?
For certification?
Does it come out and check it out and?
Usually not. Most installers, I think Blair does it, will come out and do an estimate for free. Is that true?
Usually, yeah.
Usually, but not all cases, right? So again, it depends on the installer what they charge for a site assessment. Jim, myself, Larry Rieger, the Seeds will offer to do to other Seeds members a free site assessment to help qualify your site for its solar qualities. But that's different than getting an actual quote on an installation. Okay, how do you make money back on your solar system? Well, we've already talked about getting savings. Since you're going to generate electricity, you're going to save electricity and not have to pay the utility for that electricity. That's important. But you also get back a federal tax credit if you have income and to credit against. So if you've got any income, you can get up to 30% tax credit. The third method of getting money back is called selling. You sell your solar renewable energy certificates or credits. facility here, and I'll talk a little more about in a minute, of what that means. But the key is, those are the three standard things available in Pennsylvania. There used to be a program last year and several years before called the Sunshine Grant Program from the state. Unfortunately, that ended last year, so that's no longer available. But you may have certain conditions where grants or other financial incentives are available. Farm agricultural businesses can get grants easily, or relatively easily. Unfortunately, the deadline for this year is coming up fast to apply for those grants, but they are available for small business and small farms. If you're living in New York or elsewhere, anywhere in the country, you can also go to this website. They have a nice summary of all the regulatory and incentive programs at the state and federal level, and many municipal and county level programs as well. Okay, tax credits, you get back to 30% of the cost. Unfortunately, you can't count your do-it-yourself labor as part of that cost. So it's only the money you actually pay out can be credited. And you get 30% of that back the year you file the taxes or the year the system goes in service. So if it takes you more than a few months to build it, and you happen to go into the next calendar year before you finish it, you can't count it this year, you have to wait till next year to count. It does not have to be your primary home. It can be a secondary home. And I didn't realize that until I did this presentation. But the current law that allows for that tax credit expires at the end of 2016. So if you want to take advantage of a 30% tax credit, you need to get your system in service before December 31st, December 2016. Unless Congress passes an extension. Okay, and the form that you file with your income tax is 5695. If you don't have enough income that year to credit against the 30%, you can carry forward the credit into future years. And up to, I think it's up to 5 years you can carry forward. Okay? The second big thing is you get money back because you're not sending it to the utility. You don't have to buy your kilowatt hours from PPL or whoever your utility is. Instead, you generate them yourself. The other benefit that Pennsylvania requires of the utilities is that they support net metering. Now, this is currently true of only distribution utilities. So if you've chosen an alternate supplier, you need to confirm that that alternate supplier supports net metering today. The PUC has proposed rules to require all utilities, even alternate ones, to support net metering, but those are not yet into effect and probably won't go until later this fall or next year. Now, what net metering does is allows you to generate excess electricity, because the sun only shines certain parts of the day, right? But it allows you to generate that excess electricity and save it in the bank by basically allowing your meter to run backwards. Right? So if your meter runs backwards, you're getting a credit about future use of that kilowatt hour, and you can use it any other time when the sun's not shining. At night, storms, winter when the sun's low in the sky and you're not generating much. Those are important times. So it's a virtual battery. You don't need batteries to have this benefit. In fact, you don't want batteries often because they're toxic, they're high maintenance, they're expensive, they have to be replaced every 5 to 7 years. Batteries are a costly component. They're nice in that they give you power when the grid is off due to a damage or lines down or whatever. But that comes with an extra cost that we're not including in this analysis.
Is it 1-to-1?
Yes, it's 1-to-1. So when you generate an excess credit because you're producing more at noon than your house is using, you get a kilowatt hour credit for the one extra production. And that is good for the whole year until usually the April or May billing cycle. And at that month, and it's being standardized by the new rules to April, but currently utilities can pick whatever month they want. At that month, you'll get a check, a real cash, for any excess you have at that month. However, it's not at the retail dollar rate. Okay, it's only at the rate to compare, which doesn't include all the taxes, fees, and some of the other items. Okay, so it's usually not a good idea economically to overproduce. Yes?
Okay, one of the components, the variable components of monthly bill is the transmission fee. How does that figure into this? Do you
Okay.
get credit against that or not?
So it depends on the tariff you have with your utility. If you're a residential user,
Yeah,
transmission fees are usually charged by the kilowatt hour,
yes,
and therefore it counts.
it does, okay.
It does. You don't get that level, you don't get that money back in cash at the end,
Right,
but it counts against the credit. Now, if you're a business or you're on the GS1 tariff, turns out the transmission fees and other things are charged on a demand basis. So those demand fees and your monthly connection fee, PPL is like $14.35 right now for the monthly connection fee. Those things you don't get back. You still have to pay those. So your energy is not totally free. Well, your energy is, but your use of the grid is not totally free. Okay? Okay, so that helps you get money back, but now you got to put a number on it. How do you put a number on it? Well, you got to predict the amount of production you get out of the system that you've installed. Okay, and this matters by orientation. How far, are you exactly south? Are you 20 degrees off? Are you 40 degrees off of south? Are you angled at 30 degrees, at 60 degrees? All these configuration parameters make a difference. And so does the weather. Honesdale has clouds at winter. We have a lot of clouds. We have a fairly sunny summer. So, but that's different than Scranton, and it's different than across the river in the Catskills. So weather makes a difference too. So you need to incorporate weather patterns to know how to predict how much you're going to produce. The simple answer, though, is there's a nice tool provided by the Renewable Energy Lab, the National Renewable Energy Labs, called PV Watts. You enter 5 simple numbers about your system, including your geographic location, and it will predict the annual production of that system. Okay, and the back page of the handout has more details about how to use that tool. Oh, the other important thing is to know that most solar systems, PV solar systems, are warranted by their manufacturer for 20 years. Some are done for 25 years. And some systems that have been operating for over 40 years are still operating. Okay? So PV is a nice thing, and there's no moving parts, especially on the panels. Now, the electronics, and Blair's going to talk more about what an inverter is, but the inverter may not be warranted for as long. It might be only 10 or 15 years, depending on the manufacturer. But these systems are warranted by the manufacturer for a long life. So every year you've got that system operating, it's paying you back because you're saving that, you're producing that excess electricity, and you're not spending your own money. You're producing your own kilowatt hours. Now, if your system is smaller than your usage, you still have to pay for the excess, right? Okay. I did a run with PV Watts for Honesdale. I did the optimal configuration, everything as close to perfect as you can imagine. And for each 1 kilowatt of DC panel capacity, I can get 1178 kilowatt hours annually of production. So that's a perfect system, or near perfect. Blair's rule of thumb, which is probably more appropriate for most installations, is 1,000 instead of 1,100. Okay? So within that range, you're probably pretty good.
Since people now selling all the generation plant, like that Holly one and a couple other ones.
Right.
Now, since they're not doing any generation, we generate extra to send to them. Now, are they gonna still buy it from us, or is it other companies that are gonna deal with it? There's some
No.
contractors buying it?
No, so it's.
Can you repeat what she's saying, because it's not always heard?
Yeah, Mary's question was, since PPL is selling their generation group, does it matter that they're going to split their generation business from their distribution business? And when you're net metering and interconnecting, you're interconnecting to the distribution business, not the generation business. So it's still PPL who will be our distributor, and that's who you have the net metering agreement with. So nothing changes from that point of view. Okay, the last way to make money back is SRECs. Turns out Pennsylvania is one of about 30 states that has a rule that requires utilities to buy a portion of their supply from solar generation, from solar generators. In Pennsylvania, it's a very small proportion, and it's increasing every year. It reaches the maximum at 0.5% in 2021. So a very small portion has to be solar in Pennsylvania. But how do they do that? They can buy their own solar systems and install them. Or they can buy the production credit, meaning they trade them. Somebody else generates the solar, I'll buy the right to claim it for this program, for this requirement the state has. Some environmental groups will buy them too, just to make sure more of the system is green energy instead of coal-generated energy. And there's a market that literally allows for trading of SRECs. You can buy them low and sell them high if you want. The good news is if you install a solar system in your house, you're a solar producer. And you are generating solar SRECs to sell. It's 1 SREC per megawatt hour of production. So in that 1 kilowatt system, I produce about 1 a year, 1 SREC a year. Okay, if you build a 5.5 one, you get about 5.8, 5.5. Okay, but they're worth today, after taxes and commissions to the brokers, about $30 each. So that's about 3 cents a kilowatt hour that you can get back for selling your SRECs. Okay, put all these things together, put them in a spreadsheet, and figure out your rate of return. And I'll be glad to share the spreadsheet to anybody who wants it. But you use the internal rate of return function in Excel. In this example, and the same example is in the handout, but you put a 10 kilowatt system in your house, on a house in Honesdale. It costs about $3.50 a watt, so that's $35,000. You get 30% of that back with your taxes the next year. You sell SRECs at $30 each, about 10 a year. Electricity at 11.9 cents, which is the rate it was until June 1st. Then you could get back, break even, all the money gap in 16 years. So that's a long time to wait to have total recovery of the $35,000. But that's what it would be. Jim?
It's probably fair to point out that this is a very conservative model. To assume that the cost of electricity is only going to increase by 1.5% is very conservative. I personally think the utilities are going to, as the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of producing energy goes up, the utilities are going to increase the cost of electricity by more than that. Right. There are other factors in here that are conservative, but we didn't want to present an optimistically rosy picture, or too rosy a picture to you.
Good point, absolutely. But if we compare that in our rate of return model, that's a 4.5% rate of return over 25 years. Okay? So if you're used to Wall Street giving you 10 and 12% on a Wall Street type of investment, maybe this doesn't sound so good. 4.5%. But you're taking a lot of risk in Wall Street. You never know when that price is going to fall through the floor or have another crash.
You don't know how much the sun's gonna shine either.
But the good news is the sun's been around for 5 billion years. It's predicted to be around for another 5 billion years.
No, I mean the cloud.
The clouds, you're basing the weather analysis on a 20-year recent history. If we have a lot more storms, yeah.
How accurate is the Farmer's Almanac?
Right. But in comparison, that 4.5%, first off, remember inflation is hitting us at least 2% every year. So that's a negative value. If you put your money in the mattress under your bed, you're losing 2% of that value every year to inflation. Okay, so you don't want to do that. You want a rate of return at least 2% to stay even with inflation. But U.S. bank accounts, my bank account's paying about 0.01%.
You need a new bank.
I do. And some are paying 0.1% in a regular checking account. You can get, when I checked it, U.S. Treasury bills, 3-month Treasury bills at 4.04%. 1-year certificates of deposit up to 1.1%. And a 20-year bond, Treasury bond, is returning 3.18%. So we can beat the rate of return of a 20-year bond right now. And mortgages are more expensive, okay? If you're the bank, you can make more than 4.5%, but not if you're a homeowner. You've got to pay out that percentage. Okay, so this is the economical analysis that we did, and we hope the handout helps you compare it for yourself. But you do need to understand the risks, both technology risks and quality risks of the equipment. But make your own decision for your situation is the key. And I'll just add one last thing, is this is the financial study, and we only considered the finances, right, the economics. There are other reasons also to buy solar. And this little cartoon might be one. Thank you. Claire? And I'll be around for breaks and questions.
Okay, it's about 20 to 8, so I'm going to try to take maybe 15 minutes. Give a little slideshow here myself, and
Just the other PowerPoint slide. Far left.
Basically, I want to thank Jack and Jim. I know they put a lot of time into doing this, doing the investment part. It's something I could explain when we go and do a site visit, explain the finances of it, but Jack really, and whenever there's an economic question, I ask him things. I'll give him a call and say, well, what about this, what about that? I've given a couple people his name in terms of these rural energy, agriculture, grant things. That's what I call them, those grant things. Talk to Dave Falvo, talk to Jack. These people know that more. I'm here to install. I'm here to make sure your system's running right. Obviously, you guys are here because you are already convinced of doing a system somewhat, maybe very interested in it, and you want to kind of try to do it yourself. So the scope that we're going to be looking at is very limited. There's different applications out there, many ways you could put up solar, but the way we're going to go is the easiest way for a homeowner to install. There's the least amount of mistakes you can make, so it will look a little complex. I'm going to go a little fast through this slide and just give you a quick overview. Take a break, I'll show some videos, and then we'll actually do a little hands-on looking at some stuff. And I don't have any panels here today, I don't have any inverters here today. That's the easy part. That's the fast part as everything goes. I mean, the time-consuming part, laying out your roof, making sure everything is going to fit, making sure that when I showed up the first time, the calculations I took are correct when I come back the second time. Little things like that. Once you get everything laid out, finding your roof rafters, then putting everything together, it goes relatively quickly. Basically, solar energy is you have solar panels absorb energy from the sun. That's DC electric. That comes to an inverter. Your inverter changes it from AC to DC, or DC to AC, and AC is what we use in our house, then that back feeds into your electric panel. Simple, basic, straightforward. How many people here are from New York State? One. All right, all by himself. Thanks for coming. New York State still has incentives out there. They are $1 per watt to install it. To have a professional come and install on your home, it's probably a lot cheaper. It is a lot cheaper for having to pay someone to come and install it for you. With your federal tax credit, with the state money, you're looking at about a 6, 7, maybe 8-year return on investment. Because if you do it yourself, then you can't claim as much on your tax credit, but then also you can't get the state money because you're not a certified professional like this handsome gentleman right here. So, just a little reference there. If you are from New York State, maybe consider having somebody install it for you. Another thing, what kind of roofs do we have? Does anybody, who here has a metal roof? Okay, who here, regular shingle, asphalt shingle? Okay. How many have a steep roof? Those real scary ones. Yeah. Okay. Typically, if you're on a shingle roof, 7 on 12 pitch, 28 to 30 degrees is the most you want to do. If not, you want to get some roof brackets here. They slide up underneath the shingles. You put a nail or a screw in, and you put a couple of them across, and you put a 2x4 or 2x6 here. On this one, they make 2x10s, I believe, also. That's going to save you a lot. Also, if you want to rent a lift, you have to figure this stuff in also. Renting a lift, a lot safer, goes a little bit slower, but you're not worried about falling off the roof. Safety is a big issue here, too. You know, you could buy a $400 climbing harness, safety harness. Whenever we're on a steep roof, my brother and I, we just use, every time you buy a tree stand at Walmart, they give you a full-fledged safety harness so you don't fall out of your tree stand. We just use something like that. Very simple, basic, just to keep you from, if you do lose your balance, if you are carrying a solar panel on the roof and a gust of wind comes by, you don't go off the roof with it. For some reason, when you have a solar panel that's about $250 and a gust of wind comes by, you don't think to let it go. So you just kind of get pulled off with it. It's not a good thing to do. But, order of events. You want to size your system. You want to get up on your roof, take measurements, see where it's going to fit. Okay, well, how big is the solar panel? Roughly 40 inches wide by 65 inches tall. So 40 inches wide by 65 inches tall, and then you figure a 1-inch clip in between to hold them down. So you have a clip on the end, 1-inch clip, 40 inches in between. So roughly about 41 inches if you figure a clip in there also. Rule of thumb, 10 panels wide, or 3 panels wide is 10 feet. 5.5 feet tall. So the size systems we're looking at would be smaller systems, 3.5 kilowatts, 14 panels total. So if you could fit something like that on your roof, we can work with that number too. If you want to go more, we'll go more. But we don't want to get anything abstract. We're going to stick with panels and individual microinverters. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're a lot easier to work with, a lot more user-friendly. Yeah, that's about it. So we got to size the system. Will it fit on the roof? Yeah.
Do these inverters also phase in so that you can be phased in with the power that's coming into the house?
Yes.
So it's a phaser as well as a inverter?
I don't know the answer to that question. I never had that question before. Sorry. A phaser as well as an inverter jack?
Well, yeah, it matches the phase.
Yeah, oh yeah, it matches your single phase coming into the house. Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, you've got a phase of 120 and it's got to match it, otherwise
Yeah.
Yeah.
blow things up.
Science, yeah, your
Power can be always.
yeah. The couple, yeah. You have 60 hertz, it just matches like your normal electric coming in. Actually, the electric from your solar array will produce cleaner electric than you actually get from the utility company.
Yeah.
Jack has experienced that at his house.
Yeah, and it has to match, it matches the grid phasing. It doesn't have its own synchronous.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, just to touch on it, batteries, everybody wants batteries with their system, very expensive, a lot to go wrong with batteries. Yearly maintenance, 5 to 10 year lifespan, and you're spending all this money in the event the power might go out, where you would be a lot better ahead, a lot better off if you just invested in an instantaneous propane generator. Because a lot of the solar that's being absorbed from the sun, instead of pushing it back into your house, it pushes it back into these batteries, keeping them topped off, just in case the power might go out for a couple hours one night, you know, maybe 4 or 5 days like we've had before, but that's one thing. Other frequently asked questions. Anybody have any questions so far? Yeah.
You said panels are roughly 40 by 65,
Yes.
and how many watts does a panel?
250 watts. 250, maybe 245, 255. Oh, and the big question, how much is this going to cost me? Do it yourself. Price-wise, Jack was pretty right on here, about $2 a watt. So if we're looking at a 14-panel system, that's 3.5 watts, $7,000. Is that right, Billy?
I wasn't paying attention to your numbers.
Billy's my numbers guy. While I'm on the roof measuring stuff out, you know, he's on the ground putting everything together that we're going to need to get on the roof, and I'll be doing the measurements in my head, and then I'll just yell over him, what's this, what's that? He's better with numbers than I am. So, after we size the system, figure out what size we can fit, we're going to go ahead and apply. We have to apply for a permit. Who here lives in Damascus Township? You do not need a permit for your installation. That's the only township I know of that still does not need a permit. Yeah, all right. But yeah.
Does Dyberry require permits now?
I don't know.
It certainly didn't.
I don't know if I haven't done one in Dyberry yet, so that's still be new to me. If you're in Dyberry, anybody in Dyberry, there's potential out there. So, however, you still need an inspection. So we need to apply for a permit. If you're in some sort of community, you need to make sure it's okay with them. But the main thing is apply for an interconnection with the utility. Yes.
The inspection you're talking about, that's PP&L inspection.
No, it's whether you do a permit with the township, they'll come out and inspect it. The electrical inspector will come out and inspect it. But if you don't have one for your township, if you don't need a permit, you still need an electrical inspector to come out. We can give you the name of a whole bunch of different
But
inspectors.
that electrical inspection is to show the PP&L people? Or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So when part of the application is permit and interconnection with PP&L. So you get some paperwork together, send it away to PP&L. They'll say, okay, yes, you can install this system. That's part one. Send it back to you. You install it. You order the material. Then we're going to install the system. Once it's installed and ready to go, then we have the inspector come up. He signs off on it, says, yeah, he signs a little piece of paper from PP&L or Penelec or NYSEG, whoever you are, signs off on it. Then we send that information back, and then they process it and give us a call back and say yes, or an email back and say, yes, you can turn your system on. So you size it, yes.
And all of this inspection stuff, that's like for safety reasons, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, it seems like everything else that I do out there, you put up a woodshed or a little shed roof off the barn or this, that, or the driveway, it's a taxable event. You need an inspection, you need a permission, permit, that was the word. You need permission to do these things, and then once you do it, the flag goes up, and then there's a tax assessment, and you pay more money for it. If you put up a solar array, is that some sort of tax increasing event?
Yeah, that would. Has your tax increased? I don't think it increases until they come around and reassess.
Yeah, Pennsylvania actually has a tax exemption for renewable energy systems. Okay, so you don't raise your property taxes, but you may need to raise your insurance coverage.